Hey everyone, welcome to our next session of the Safety Nights Heat Safety Summit. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Dan Abatoy. I handle the operations here at Safety Nights. So if you have any questions about the session, the summit as a whole, or anything to do with Safety Nights, I'm going to toss my email in the chat. Feel free to email me anytime. I'm always available to answer any questions. Second of all, if you're new to Crowdcast and you haven't already done so, you will have to verify. You may have to verify your email. You'll have received an email from Crowdcast asking you to do that. So if you haven't done that already, be on the lookout for that email. And until you do that, things like the chat and I believe questions section is going to be locked or unusable. Secondly, if you have any questions at all during the session, feel free to toss them into the question section of the chat. You'll see that located on the right-hand side of your screen. It's the Q&A section, just looks like a question mark. So click on that, toss question in there. And if you already see a question in there and it is a question that you were going to ask or really resonates with you, feel free to upvote that. It'll give us an indication as to how important that question is for everybody here. Okay, having covered all that, I will turn the stage over to Tracy from Cold Vest. Tracy, take it away.
Thank you, Dan, and thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. As you can tell, we're talking about preparing for extreme heat and going into details about a safety emergency action plan. There doesn't need to be a world on a job site where somebody dying or living is a question of luck. And there doesn't need to be a world on a job site where you're saying, wow, what could we have done? This talk is about preparing so nobody is taken off guard and everybody can get home safely. It's really important in today's world. What I talk about when I talk about extreme heat is that we can no longer use the past to use data to inform the current. Every summer in the past sort of 10 years, every summer's been hotter than the next. And this summer is proving to become another hottest summer on record. So heat-related illness and deaths are on the rise, and 70% of those deaths occur in the first week on the job. So the reason that we exist, that Cold Vest exists, and that I love what I do is because nobody needs to die from heat stroke. So it's 100% survivable. So if you're prepared and you know what to look for, then nobody needs to die. I think you guys all know this, or at least anybody that's working in the safety space knows about OSHA. It still exists. It's still around, not only at the federal level, but at the state level. So, at the highest macro level, every workplace needs a training program response plan. But as the years have progressed, heat has become a much more important topic for safety across job sites, both indoor and outdoor. So last year, probably, I don't know, everybody knows that OSHA has proposed a heat injury and illness protection plan for indoor and outdoor workers. This talk today will talk about how to help prepare for those emergencies. What I've found in talking to customers and people in this industry is there's a talk about the emergency plan, but what are the details and how to do it? And then state by state, there are even more stringent heat safety standards, which is great to see. And I've listed a few, and there are other states that have these standards being proposed right now. So an EAP, as you probably know, but I'll continue to say, and I think I'm on the last day or the close to the last day, so this may be repetitive, but there are basically 4 steps to a heat emergency action plan. Assigning roles, making sure you have a protocol in case of emergency, making sure you have equipment, and making sure that everybody is trained. It's very simple, but not always easy. It's very important to assign roles in advance so that you're not scrambling at the sign of an emergency. I've put down responder one and responder two. You may be on a job site with two people. It doesn't matter if you don't have all the people. What's important here is knowing what each role is, knowing what's important to do when you're getting to a site that's really hot, or you're working on a day that's really hot, or you're in an environment that's warm. Make sure that people are aware of the signs and somebody's kind of looking around and checking on their neighbor and their peers. Make sure somebody knows that their role is to call 911. Make sure another person or the same person knows to initiate cooling. And then when EMS comes, that you know exactly what to tell them what's happened. It is important to know what these roles are and who's going to do them, whether there's one person or 10 people on a job site. And it's very important to be trained on them as well. But I'll get to that. One of the issues with heat stroke is that it's very sometimes hard to recognize, and somebody can go from heat exhaustion or heat illness to heat stroke in minutes without people really recognizing the signs. There are a lot of signs, and there's a lot of talk on what the signs are. At the highest level, the three things we sort of ask as you're looking around and thinking about what's happening to your peer, or it's really hot out, or you've been working, you don't feel well, or somebody feels dizzy, is it hot? Are you working hard? And is somebody confused? That's a really interesting one, because one of the first things that happens in heat, even heat exhaustion, is confusion, mental confusion. And so your peers may look around and go, what, like so-and-so's acting really strange, I don't understand, and thinking it's bizarre. And that's often a very critical clue to heat stroke. And if that's happening, you need to respond quickly, because heat illness needs to be addressed immediately. And heat stroke, you have about 30 minutes to cool core body temperature down before permanent damage or death. So it's really important to be hyper vigilant on sites where it's very warm about recognizing a sign and working on treating that immediately. And then the second, so that's kind of like recognition of heat illness and heat exhaustion, which is super important. The other important part is having an actual protocol, an emergency protocol. And I know OSHA mentions this, and I think some people want to know, like, what exactly goes into that. And so the heat protocol, once you've recognized that someone has heat stroke or heat exhaustion, is taking them away from the heat if you can. Sometimes you can't. If somebody's collapsed and passed out, then you just got to treat the person on the spot. But if you can get them to a cooler environment or the shade, then that's great. 911 has to be called immediately. And then you need to begin cooling. This is really, really important in the treatment of heat stroke. Cool first and transport second. Again, I mentioned you have 30 minutes to react. So every minute counts. When someone is suffering from heat stroke, their inner organs are burning, and you can't always recognize what's happening. So you need to begin cooling immediately. We'll always say that cold water immersion is the gold standard, and everybody knows that. So if you have an ice tub or an ice bath or a Polar Life pod, get somebody in ice. That is the gold standard. If you can't, or if you're in an environment where ice is not an option or available and you just can't keep it warm, that's where we come in. And that's where we like to be, in those remote scenarios where ice isn't available. But ice first or cold vest first, begin cooling immediately. Supplement that with wet towels, anything. And then the only way to confirm core body temperature is through a rectal thermometer. So it's really important to track that, so you know where somebody is and how to cool them down. And you continue cooling until their core body temperature has decreased. And once EMS comes, it's important to explain to them what you've done, what the temperature is that you've measured, and if they haven't cooled all the way down to 101 or 102, then this is, again, an area where cold vest can help keep cooling while they're transported in the ambulance. Again, I've mentioned this, and I know it may be repetitive, and I think a lot of people talk about it, but it's you have 30 minutes to treat someone who has heat stroke. And when you do, it's 100% preventable that they will not die. So, and most deaths occurs before they get to the hospital because they haven't been treated fast enough. And in some cases, EMS takes 20, 30 minutes to arrive, depending on the job site. I mean, some of these oil and gas sites are very remote. So it's really important to cool first and transport second. I feel like a broken record, but I think it's really important to say. And then again, this is where we like to really help companies that we talk to talk about equipment. Because if you don't have it, then you don't have a plan. You need to be prepared for these emergencies. Cold tubs, ice baths, ice if you can, cold vest if you can't. You should have a rectal thermometer. You should have a wet bulb globe thermometer or some way to measure people's core body temperature. We love to recommend companies like Periweather or Vigilife because they have the ability up front to measure core body temperature, not only on the site, but in some cases at an individual level. So you never have to wonder what someone's core body temperature is. So prevention is super important. Ice packs, fans, towels, water, obviously, and then a map. You need to print out your emergency plan and a map for EMS. And the last part of the protocol is training and drills. Like I really train like it's real because as I keep saying, every minute counts when there's an emergency, and we don't want anyone scrambling around. So, training and heat illness should be used for all employees and in the language that they use, the primary language. We work a lot with athletes in schools, and I kind of consider this akin to the concussion training. In the locker room, everybody's trained on concussion and what to do and how to treat athletes. And I believe this is the same thing. Ensure that all employees know and recognize the signs of heat stroke. We actually have posters that we send with cold vest and that we have on our site. So you can print out what are the signs of heat stroke, and making sure that people are vigilant and aware of the people around them. And all the supervisors should be able to lead during an emergency and enforce preventative measures. And practice, just, as you're getting on a site, right now it's March, so this is like the perfect time to start preparing and ensuring that you know what to do in case of a real world scenario. Again, cold vest is an emergency treatment. We really believe in prevention up front, acclimating workers gradually. That's one of the biggest issues that is one of the reasons that 70% of those heat deaths occur in the first week. Nobody's been acclimated to the heat. Monitoring conditions with the wet bulb globe, making sure that people are hydrated and they have breaks, and that hopefully there are places where you can have shade or you can put up tents for shade, and training your team before the season begins, which is in some cases, I mean, it's already, I think, 95 in Phoenix. So it's kind of now as we prepare for the upcoming season. So once again, the checklist being roles, and everybody knows what their role is. Everybody understands the emergency protocol. You have equipment for your site and you know it's functional. You have a rectal thermometer available. You know the plan for EMS, and everybody's been trained. Again, I mean, this isn't long. It's not a super drawn out plan, which I think is good. It's more like making sure you understand what to do, but preparing, training, and responding. I can't stress enough that no one ever needs to die from heat stroke. And I think a mistake is thinking, well, we've never had one on our site and this hasn't happened before, or we've only had it happen twice. We can't use the past anymore to inform the future. It is not a question of if this is going to happen on your site in the heat. It's when. So for us, we like to be in every job site to make sure that everybody can respond. But if you can have ice, then you should have ice. I like to help companies because we often talk to companies, and I'm sort of again on the end of the treatment, but a lot of companies don't know what to do or what products are out there for prevention. So we like to work with Periweather and Vigilife. Both of those companies help monitor wet bulb globe temperatures, and Vigilife helps monitor actual workers and their core body temperature. So you're never really surprised. You can be aware of it. RGMD has a rectal thermometer that should be on every site. La Isla Network, we work with a lot to help prepare overall plans for work sites. And again, there are a couple of distributors that we work with that have a lot of these products. So you shouldn't be scrambling trying to find out where to find them and how to get them. So that's it for my presentation on an emergency action plan. It's short but sweet, I guess. So does anybody have any questions?
Tracy, I actually have a question.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know for most of us here, if we've been to a couple of the other sessions, we've heard cold vest being mentioned as a tool. I'm just curious as to, could you walk us through exactly like how does it work, right? Like I see the image of it,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. I'll actually, yeah.
how would this work? Yeah.
Yeah. So cold vest, I'll actually show you. I wasn't so it comes in a bag. So I don't know if you guys can see it. So it's just about 8 pounds. So the good news about that is it can be on any job site anywhere. I mean, we work with construction companies in Florida where it's on every floor of the building they're working on. And then it comes vacuum sealed. So as long as it's not open, you can store it for 3 years. And that's the good news of it. Basically, inside cold vest are chemicals. And when they are met with water, they react and create an endothermic reaction that immediately cools. So it goes down to about 25 or 26 degrees. And it's called a vest, but it's basically a blanket. So you can lay it on someone or they can lie on it, and it stays cold for an hour. So it lowers core body temperature from like 108 to 104 in 20 minutes and stays cold for an hour. So that's how it works. And that's why in the event that you can't have an ice bath or ice available all the time to cool someone down, this works really well because you don't need any ice or power. Sorry, I didn't mean to plug it. But thank you for asking.
No, absolutely. And I think like being able to getting back to your whole time matters aspect.
Yeah.
And as someone who has a background in healthcare and being in those emergency trauma situations, being able to see and understand how quickly and easily something can be implemented.
Yeah.
When you're in that fight or flight response of that emergency situation, I think is really critical.
Yeah. It comes with the fluid bag. So in the cases where you're working on a site that's really hot, you could just fill this up and have it sitting beside you, ready to go. But the whole process takes about a minute to get cold vest on somebody's body. Yeah. And you're right. It is really critical to react quickly.
Yeah, it's funny because it had reminded me of I was watching an episode of a show where Ryan Reynolds was talking about himself parachuting, and he did like 13 jumps and everything was fine until the 13th one, in which the chute didn't open, and then he was thinking to himself like, in that emergency situation, do I even pull the reserve vest because shoot, like, because if I don't, what? And you realize, joking aside, the thought process of the panic of what do I do in this situation. And so I think, again, the simplicity of cold vest being a really quick, this is how it's done. You don't have to go and find ice or water or anything to solve that problem, and having it something that's directly next to you, I think is a really critical aspect to that you should definitely be plugging, because I think it's a great
especially
solution.
if someone collapses, it's really hard to get them from wherever they are to the ice bath in many cases. But sometimes the other question we get asked a lot is sort of like, how do you know when do you deploy it? And there are signs that you can recognize, and we talked about what some of them are. And I guess in the worst case scenario, I say if you're really not sure, you should deploy it or put someone in an ice bath, because the worst thing that can happen is they get really cold. But if you're not sure, cool somebody.
Yeah, I think that's also a great point in terms of a lot of times when it comes to any type of emergency situation, right? There's a lot of things that I think of like AEDs for an example, right? When do you use one? When don't you use one? And the dangers that can come when you're using it improperly, incorrectly, at the wrong point in time. To your point, this is worst case scenario. Someone just gets a
Yeah.
little bit cold in the
Yeah.
heat, and so I think again having that as an option. With worst case scenario, someone just gets cooled down a little bit. It
Yeah.
is it is a great point to reference. There's really no wrong. It doesn't seem, at least, there's a wrong time to use this.
No.
We do have a question here from Oakley.
Yeah.
He asks, keeping an ice bath on site. Where are the best locations for them, and do we keep them ready to use at all times?
Well, I think it should be closest to wherever people are working in the heat. Because if somebody collapses, how are you going to get them to an ice bath? I mean, is everybody going to carry them? Are you up 7 flights? So if you can have a portable ice bath, and I know that those exist, and you can have them on wherever the job site is, that's great. Yeah, the ice is a tough one, because how do you keep all that ice ready to go? I mean, it should be ready to go. You don't have to keep it in the bath, but it needs to be somewhere that it's ready to react in the time of an emergency. That's kind of the hard part about ice. If you have the ability to do that, then you probably have somewhere where you're keeping ice. And if you do that, then it's really critical in your emergency plan that somebody has the role and responsibility of getting the ice, or going to get the ice bath, or knowing where the ice bath is, knowing where the ice is, and that person or people are responsible for getting that to the site. If the person can walk, great, you can get them there. So it's so dependent on the job site. I would say in an emergency plan, if you have one, again, it's important that somebody knows what their role is in that getting of the ice and getting the ice bath. We get that question a lot. We work with a lot of agricultural teams and farms, and how many cold vests do they need? And it should be, if you're out in the field far away from everything, the team needs to have a product there that they don't need to walk very far to get to the product. I hope that answered the question. It's kind of, I think it's lame to say it depends on the job site, but it sort of does, as long as somebody knows that that's their role.
Yeah, that was Oakley. Great question. We do have another question from Christy. She asks, are there different sizes? Is this one size fits all? Too much for a small child, or will you need multiple for a larger individual?
That's a great question. It's one size fits all. And we did a test last year with a human trial with the Corey Stringer Institute. We have not found that BMI affects the cooling rate. So it's good news. It can work for anyone. Currently, it's being used in middle schools in Alabama. So I know that it's about 8 or 9 pounds when it's filled with water. So the good thing about cold vest is you could actually lay it down on the ground this way and have somebody lie on top of it on their back. So in the case of small children, you could use it that way. So it doesn't need to go on top of somebody. If you're concerned at all, you can use two, one on the back and one on the front. But again, we haven't seen it affect BMI for core body cooling, or seen BMI affect the core body cooling.
Yeah, another great question. I think again, you would hate to have one too little, right, for a situation, but it's great
Yeah.
to know that in this situation, one seems to be enough for anybody. So great question, Christy. Before we wrap up, please feel free, again, everybody, if you have any other questions, toss them into the chat. And while you're doing that, I just want to say, Tracy, thank you to you and to Cold Vest for being a part of this, sharing this knowledge, information, so that people can make sure that no one is not going home
Yeah,
because of something that's preventable. So
totally.
so thank you for your time to be a part of this summit.
Thank you. It's our mission to make sure that no one dies of heat stroke. That's our whole mission. No one ever needs to die.
All right. Well, yeah, and I completely agree with that, especially when it's something as preventable and with a great solution like this, that is not only compact but very user friendly. So, as of right now, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. But
Great.
everybody, please make sure you either take a picture or write down Tracy's contact information here on the slide. Um, and since we don't have any other questions, I guess we'll wrap this up. And all I can say again is, Tracy, thank you
Thank you.
for everything that you do and for Cold Vest being a product that's available as a solution. So
Thank
thank
you.
you, and I appreciate everyone's time here today. And since we don't have any other questions, we'll wrap the session up. And we do have one more session tomorrow that is going to be at 1:30 with Terra Champion. So I hope to see everybody there.
Thank you.
Until then, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.